Hey guys, we are live. Welcome to another episode of Calm Belly TV. All right, so I'm Julie and I run this Facebook group, Calm Belly Kitchen, and my website is calmbellykitchen.com. So if you're new around here, I do Calm Belly TV every Wednesday at 5:45 Central Time, and today is the very, very special Thanksgiving edition. All right, so I'm gonna give you tips on how to make all of your Thanksgiving favorites low FODMAP. I even have an idea for your stuffing that will win you lovers and friends because it is so delicious. Everyone will want to eat it, okay? So if you are interested in that, keep on watching. All right, so what else? What else is there? Yeah, if you're new around here, I am a health coach specializing in IBS and helping you manage IBS with the FODMAP diet. So that's what I do on calmbellykitchen.com. And I love to talk about food especially. So let's get started. All right, if you're watching the replay, you can leave a comment below and I will come back and I will answer your questions. And I am going to curate a bunch of recipe links for different, Thanksgiving recipes, and those will be in my email newsletter that I'm going to be sending out on Friday. So if you are not on that already, you're going to want to get on it. I'm going to put some links together and I'll include this video if you want to be able to see the replay. All right, so let's get started. We might as well start with turkey, right? That's kind of the big event, even though, well, some people love it, some people don't. Kind of depends on who cooks it, right? So turkey's an easy one, and you guys know that. Now, if someone else does the turkey and they use a lot of spices, if it's really heavily spiced and you know there was sort of an onion garlic blend on there and you just don't want to go there, then you should be okay if you just kind of don't eat that outer layer of meat, so skip the skin, skip that outer layer, and since a turkey is so big, it's usually easy to get some of those inner pieces that really won't have touched the seasoning. So if you are in that situation, that's what I recommend. If you're cooking the turkey, you can do tons of great stuff. You can do butter and olive oil, and I just do, personally, like when I do my turkey, I do dried herbs. I love sage, thyme, and rosemary. I personally love tarragon, so even though that's not super traditional, I usually add in some dried tarragon as well. And fresh sage and fresh rosemary are excellent too. Okay. So that's the turkey. That's pretty easy. Let's go on. Or did I have something else to say about the turkey? I've got a whole slew of notes here. Oh, gravy. Okay, so gravy's very doable, and I found some recipe links that I'll include in the Friday email. So if you need a gravy recipe, you can totally pull that off. All right, stuffing. Stuffing is most people's favorite. It's totally my favorite. And when I first started, I promised you a stuffing idea that would win you friends. And Linda, I requested a stuffing recipe as well when I asked for questions for this video. So, Linda, I recommend, well, you have a lot of options, but the killer option that will win you friends and lovers is a cornbread stuffing. So, if you can buy cornbread, that's tough. That's hard to do. Let's assume you're gonna make the cornbread. And you can find tons of gluten-free cornbread recipes online, but what you wanna look for is just a traditional Southern cornbread recipe that only calls for cornmeal. So something that is not made with any flour at all. I'm gonna try to find some links for you that I'll include in my email newsletter on Friday. So you're gonna start with cornbread, which is delicious anyway, and just use that for your stuffing. So you can easily do a gluten-free cornbread. You can even if you do a more traditional cornbread with a little bit of regular flour in it, that's a really small amount of FODMAPs, just kind of throwing that out there as an option. So start with cornbread. When I do it, I usually make it in my cast iron skillet the day before, and then I will chop it up into cubes and dry it out in the oven. So we're talking maybe a 300-degree oven. You just kind of bake those in there so they get a little bit hard. Kind of like when you buy crispy breadcrumbs for stuffing, like a stuffing mix, so they get a little bit stale and crispy. And that's what you really want your bread for a good stuffing. So you do that, and for your stuffing vegetables, you can do shredded carrots, or chopped carrots, of course. You can do shredded celery root. That's a really good one. It's not a typical one, but it's got a lot of flavor and it really kind of meshes with everything else really nicely. You can do fennel, which is a nice substitute for celery. I mean, they don't have the same flavor, but they have a really similar texture. So that's sometimes nice. And fennel has great flavor. You know, if you like that, then go for it, you know? All right, what else? Tara asked what would be best in stuffing scallions or leeks, and you know, you can use either one. I recommend leeks. When I'm doing something where I kind of feel like making the effort of buying the leeks and washing the leeks, they're really great. They're delicious. Like if you've ever roasted leeks or even just chopped them up and sauté them, they're just delicious. They're like almost like a sweeter onion flavor. I love them. So you don't need to have, if your stuffing recipe calls for 2 cups of onion, you can tone that down a little bit. You can substitute, you know, just so you have the same volume, you can substitute, like I was saying, shredded carrots, shredded celery root, fennel. You can add in those other veggies to make up for the volume. But I do recommend leeks, but if you want to do a bunch of scallion tops, that totally works as well. Scallions are usually good to add at the end because their flavor is more mild, but it all works. It really does. All right, so that is your stuffing. Oh, and if you like to make sausage stuffing, all right, you don't need to buy sausage, although you could find a chicken sausage that can be low FODMAP. There are a few of those, you know, that are fairly easy to find, but you could just use ground pork. And I recommend seasoning that with really whatever you like. So if you want it to taste like sausage, season it with fennel seeds. So that'll be like sweet Italian sausage. You can add chili flakes, chili powder, dried herbs, whatever flavors that you want to see in there. And ground pork is great, you know, I mean, that's really close to sausage, right? Maybe even a little healthier. So that's what I would recommend using. I also love doing either fresh or smoked oysters. I've done it with both, and I like smoked oysters like in a can. They're really tasty, inexpensive and delicious. Okay, so that covers stuffing. And if you're watching live, guys, feel free to say hi and pop in your questions. I'm taking questions this whole time. And yeah, if you're just joining me, we're going through tips on how to make a lot of your Thanksgiving favorites low FODMAP. So we've covered turkey, we've covered stuffing. I'm not going to recap on this one because you can go back and listen. It's kind of a lot to recap, as you'll see. Okay, so cranberry sauce. This is a good one. You might not realize that cranberries are low FODMAP. So fresh cranberries are not on the Monash app, only dried, and the equivalent amount of dried cranberries that are low FODMAP is about a tablespoon, and the equivalent amount of that for fresh is about 4 ounces. So that's a lot. So those bags of cranberries you buy in the grocery store are 12 ounces. If you buy like the bag of Ocean Spray cranberries or whatever brand, they're typically 12 ounces. So if you've ever made cranberry sauce, that makes a lot of cranberry sauce. So if you have, you know, maybe a 1/4 cup serving of cranberry sauce, you don't need a ton of it on your plate, right? So you're totally good with that. For flavorings, I recommend, I mean, you can go so many different ways, and I will give you my recipe developer pro tip, okay? All the recipes, well not all, but so many recipes that you see for cranberry sauce call for a huge amount of sugar. And yeah, you need sugar, you definitely do, to you know, cut through that tart flavor. But you can cut that sugar in, maybe not in half unless you really like a tart cranberry sauce, which some of you might, but you can cut down 1/3 of that sugar if you're someone who watches that sort of thing. You can easily cut it. It'll still taste really good. And as you're cooking it, if it's a little too tart, you can just add more. But you can definitely start with less sugar. And the reason why those recipes have so much sugar is because a lot of them were developed decades ago. You know, those were the prototypes, and they were created for preserving. Like if you were making jam, and that sugar acts as a preservative, so it's important to have a certain amount of sugar. But we're just making cranberry sauce that we're going to serve and, you know, go on our way. We're not going to try to store it for months or anything like that. So you can cut the sugar. Okay. Citrus zest is a great addition to cranberry sauce. What else do I have? Like you could do a little shredded coconut and lime zest for like a tropical cranberry sauce. That would be really good. I often do garam masala, which is the Indian spice blend in my cranberry sauce, or I just do cardamom, which I absolutely love. I like mine slightly savory, not super sweet, but you can do that. It's great. You could do Chinese 5-spice powder, which is also a little bit sweet. Those are just some ideas if you like to go the slightly non-traditional Thanksgiving route. But you are all good to go on cranberry sauce, so that's a fun one. And if you've never made it before from fresh cranberries, it's so easy. It's so easy, and I'll include a recipe in the email that I send out on Friday. Okay, moving on to mashed potatoes. So just on a health note, a lot of mashed potato recipes call for like 2 sticks of butter, and guess what? You don't need it. You absolutely don't. If that's what you like and you want to indulge, go for it. But if you're health conscious and you think, oh, I have to follow the recipe, you absolutely don't. You can use a fraction of that. You can use olive oil. So really, you'll just be tasting the potato more than you will be the butter. And most of us really like the taste of potatoes, so that's what I recommend. Now, you're not going to be adding, onion or garlic to your potatoes, but to get more flavor, you could add scallion tops, and I would kind of stir those in at the end so they keep a lot of their flavor. What else can you do? Fresh or dried herbs. Fresh sage would be great in potatoes. If you want to make them really decadent but not add a ton of butter, you could go with cheese, like goat cheese mashed potatoes are insane, or just cheddar, like whatever kind of floats your boat on that one. You can also, what else did I have? Oh, you can use red skin potatoes, or the kind of potatoes with thin skin that you don't have to peel. So when you leave that skin in there, it kind of adds more texture and flavor and interest, and that's just a way to add more interest. And the last suggestion I have for potatoes is if you like the taste of buttermilk, like a tangy mashed potato type flavor, do lactose-free kefir. That's a really fun twist on potatoes, especially if you've ever made them with buttermilk. Okay, moving on to veggies. So if you like creamed spinach or creamed chard or kale, you can have, what did I wrote it down? The equivalent of about 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. That is considered low FODMAP, according to the Monash app. So if you're making, you don't need a ton of cream generally to make, creamed greens. So that's the amount that you can have. It's not totally forbidden. Or you could make creamed veggies with a bechamel sauce. So that's the kind of sauce where you thicken it with flour, and in that case you use milk instead of cream. So you could use a lactose-free milk like Lactaid and still make a cream sauce, and then you add your cooked greens to that, okay? What else for veggies? Red cabbage, that's a good low FODMAP veggie, and you can saute that. You can add a little bit of maple syrup to get a little sweet note. You can add chopped pecans and herbs. I really like that as a side dish. You can do green beans, but you don't need to do that ridiculous green bean casserole with like the canned fried onion situation and the tomato or the mushroom soup. If there are not Americans watching, you're baffled right now, but if you are American, you probably know what I'm talking about. So my suggestion for green beans would be steaming them and then sauteing them with either olive oil or butter or a combination, or coconut oil, and then tossing them with toasted hazelnuts and orange zest. That would be amazing. Plenty of salt and pepper, and you can have green beans become high FODMAP if you eat too much of them, but a low FODMAP serving size is a good amount, so you can double check that on the app, but you can definitely do green beans if you cook them in a low FODMAP way. So what else do we have? With sweet potato and Brussels sprouts, the low FODMAP portions of those veggies are pretty small. So if you love Brussels sprouts, you can have like 2 if you want to keep it low FODMAP, which is a bummer. I love them. Sweet potatoes, the low FODMAP serving for that. Oh, I didn't write it down. Sorry, I don't have that memorized, but it's fairly small. So if you love sweet potatoes, check your serving size for that. But otherwise, it's okay. It's okay to taste, You can have a little bit. And another nice side dish you can do is a salad. And if you want to make it really spectacular, do like pomegranate seeds or orange sections or even just like clementine sections in your salad. You can toss it with like pumpkin seeds and goat cheese, and you have this like gorgeous salad that everyone's going to want to eat. So those are my veggie suggestions. Okay, so we've covered 5 Thanksgiving favorites, and the only thing left to talk about is dessert. So here's my philosophy on Thanksgiving dessert. I am not a big pie lover. If you are, respect. I totally respect you. But for me, a dessert really should be chocolate in almost every situation, or cake. But tell me that if you brought a chocolate dessert, people wouldn't be thrilled to eat it. Am I right? Right, okay. So what about brownies? It's an easy one that people can just grab, especially if you have a big group. I've got a great gluten-free, low FODMAP, but very decadent brownie recipe on my website that I'll link to in my newsletter. You can do a flourless chocolate cake. There are tons of recipes for those all over the internet where it's basically just chocolate and butter and eggs. That's a delicious cake that's actually pretty easy to make as well, and it's, you know, it's just like heavenly death by chocolate. So that would be an amazing Thanksgiving dessert. But you can also have pumpkin pie. If you gotta have pumpkin pie, you can do it. I found some recipes that I'm gonna send you again in my newsletter on Friday. What else? So a low FODMAP serving of pumpkin is between 60 and 120 grams, so that's about 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup. And a piece of pumpkin pie should be kind of right in that wheelhouse. But that's the low FODMAP serving for canned pumpkin. You can kind of check it out on the app. Once you get to 120 grams, I believe it hits yellow light, but you know, from 60 to 120, that's sort of the range. And those are my recommendations for desserts, you guys. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you're watching the replay, leave your questions and leave your recipe ideas. So if anything I said sparked an idea, leave a link. If you've already started planning your meal, leave your recipe links below, or whatever you're planning on doing or adapting. It's going to help everyone in the group so much. So please leave your ideas, and it will help me. All right, so like I said, I am going to be sending this video out in my Friday newsletter, and I'm going to put together a bunch of links for recipes if you're just looking for something specific that you want to follow. I'm going to do that for you. All right, Kay says, I got the time difference wrong. Oh, that's okay. You can rewatch it. Yeah, it's a pain, the time difference. Wanted some stuffing ideas. Yeah, so this video, whenever I do a Facebook Live video like this, it's available immediately in the group to watch after. So if you're like in the group, it's going to be right there in the news feed and you can watch it. Emily, are any of the pumpkin pie recipes you'll be sharing dairy-free? I don't know. I didn't look. Do I have any of them pulled up on here? You know, you can always do, in most cases, almond milk is a fair substitute, Emily. The one that I had... Yeah, the one I have is dairy-free. They recommend either lactose-free milk or almond milk. So that should work. And now it has butter. Does that, if you consider that, I'm sorry, I'm not like, if you have a total dairy allergy, maybe you don't eat butter, but I would say substituting a vegan butter would be totally fine in my experience, in my baking experience. That's what I would do. But yeah, I think pumpkin pie is a recipe that you could get away with dairy-free, so I think you should be good. Any other questions, comments, requests? Hang out for just one more minute. So yeah, if you're just hopping on, we covered turkey ideas, stuffing ideas, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, which you can have on the low FODMAP diet. We covered veggie dishes and my dessert philosophy, for what it's worth. Butter is fine. Okay, cool. Coconut milk. Oh, that would probably work. That would probably work just fine. And it's nice and rich. I think that's a great idea. But yeah, I've got like 2 pumpkin pie recipes that look very promising, so hopefully that'll work for you. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, again, leave your recipes and your questions below. And next week, there's going to be no Calm Belly TV because it's Thanksgiving Eve. I know that y'all are going to be doing fun things, and hopefully I will be too. So we're skipping next week, but I will be back the week after that at 5:45 right here, all right? Bye, guys, and have a fabulous holiday, all right? Bye.